Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Monday night. We have another big commitment for Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. We have our low-key ground crew out on the camp checking out everything that's going on. The camps are still big. 4 superstars were there today at positions of need: running back, tackle, receiver, premium positions, and a superstar linebacker. We're going to talk about a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about all of the momentum that we have going with Ohio State into the summer. Official visits are going on. We're going to break down some of that. A lot of great stuff going on for Ohio State football and Ohio State fans. So we're going to get into all that. But as always, we appreciate you guys, and we thank you guys so much for all that you guys do for us. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Click that like button, click subscribe, and also click that alert. Let us know how much you enjoy this live content in those comments. Interacting with us is always a blast. We appreciate that. And as always, shout out where you guys are from. We love hearing where you guys are watching from. Again, a lot of people were surprised I grew up in Naples, Florida, but I love me some Naples, Florida. So there's a lot of Florida people watching, a lot of Ohio people watching, people all over the country. So shout out where you're from in the comments. Appreciate that as always. Going to bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. Greetings from Cali, Colombia. Excited to be talking to you guys back in the United States right now and back in the homeland, and excited to be broadcasting.
Bogota. Well, we had a camp again today. This is day 2 of camp at the Woody Hayes. We had Bill the Bank Green and Joe Drame on the ground checking it out. I got a little rundown from both of those guys about what they saw, what they liked. Some big names. We also had a big commitment. Jaylen McClain is a guy who he's from Jersey. He's a safety. Jumped in the boat. Again, these are real fluid. There were some guys that we thought were going to be in this class that I think that they passed over to get this kid. We're going to turn his film on in a second. But Nevada, give me a little perspective on what does camp mean for Ohio State right now? What does it mean for these recruits right now? How important is it? How has it changed? What are your thoughts on Ohio State football camp in 2023?
Well, let me just take a step back and talk about Ohio State recruiting in general. And, we always talk about how we give you the straight scoop on Ohio State. We'll tell you the good stuff. We'll tell you the bad stuff. We were one of the first people talking about how Ohio State needed to get their NIL act together. We've talked about some different position coaches that needed to kind of up their recruiting game. We tell you when they do good. Well, let me tell you what. Business is really good for Ohio State right now. And as an Ohio State fan, you should be really pleased with Ryan Day, with Mark Pantoni, with the entire group that they've got going out there on the recruiting trail. They've got the NIL stuff dialed in right now. They've got the recruiting stuff dialed in right now, and they've got a tremendous amount of recruiting momentum right now. I'm not going to say more so than any time it is, but it's a lot. It's a lot of recruiting momentum, and we are in on kids that I didn't even think that we'd be in on. We got a recruit today in McClain. Who, we equal signed him yesterday. There'd been some falling bombs. There'd been some stuff. We knew that this one was coming in. Really good commit. But we even have one more. We even have Bill the Bank Green with a big 5-star calling to Ohio State. Now we're not going to name him, but if you remember BuckeyeScoop.com, go into the bank's chat or the bank's blog today and see who he's calling in. But big 5-star, probably not somebody that you'd be thinking, maybe not a name that you're thinking that been hearing, but big 5-star call by Bill Green to Ohio State. So business is good for Ohio State, and it's about to get better. And with camp season here, look, it's not the same as it used to be. It's not 50 great players or 60 great players or 100 great players in long sessions, but the players are bringing in are quality. The players that they're bringing in, they're getting a good hard look at, and Ohio State's about to go on a recruiting run. So watch out. McClain was the first domino to fall. Other dominoes are going to start falling. Summer's going to be very good for Ohio State football, and for fans, you should be really excited about that.
We apologize, guys. I've been on mute for a second. So, what are your thoughts on the three safety look, Nevada, as we continue to do this with Jim Knowles' defense?
Well, I like what you were doing right there, where you're doing the pantomime thing, where you're just going on and on. I saw your lips moving the whole time, and like there were no words coming out or anything else like that. So that was kind of exciting. It's like kabuki theater here for the Buckeye Scoop. So that was kind of fun. But I'm glad that we're back in nominating. Look, I like it. I like getting your best players on the field. Whatever you want to call them, whether you want to call them safeties or bandits or adjusters or boundaries or monster men or heroes or whatever you want to call. I like to have big athletic guys that can, I'll even give up a little bit of coverage to have those guys that are those hybrids. I think back on when has Ohio State had great defense, and you look at the players, and I look back at 2015 when they had or 2014, 15 when he had Darren Lee, and he had that guy that could kind of walk out, um, cover guys, rush the passer, stop the run. I really think those guys are the key. I think those guys are the swing guys. So I think, when you can find guys that can fit that bill, those big rangy athletes, those big rangy safeties that can grow into those positions, man, I like it. I think it's the key to modern defense, and I think it's the only way to stop these spread offenses in 2023.
Yeah, I agree. I think that stopping the spread is the most important thing going forward for us. And, again, I think that the three safety thing is kind of overblown, especially when one of them is literally called a nickel. It's the same as a nickel. I think you just have to have guys that can cover. In modern college football, you need fewer Steve Atwaters. You need more guys that can run and cover, like Eric Berry and those types of safeties. And that's where we're heading to. Like, if you can't cover and run in space in modern college football, I think you're toast. I don't think there's a place for you anymore. I think that there's some guys that were great players at Ohio State that would have been kind of phased out in modern college football. And, guys like Malik Hooker are guys, you see their stock go up. Dante Whitner, guys that could cover ground, guys that could, Dante was recruited as a cornerback, never actually played cornerback, was always a safety. But, those guys are truly invaluable to modern football because Dante was a 4-3 guy. He could hit, he could diagnose, he could kind of do everything when he was at Ohio State, and that's why he was a top 10 pick as a safety, which is generally a position that isn't a premium spot where many teams, they devalue safeties. It's kind of like a running back. Like you don't see many of those guys in the top 10 unless they're exceptional, unless they're like a B. John Robinson or an Ezekiel Elliott type of guy. So, but it's really interesting. Like I said, I love the kid's film. I think he's got big upside. Obviously, for taking him this early in the cycle. We bumped a kid out of this class that we thought we were going to get from Dayton to take a Jersey kid. So, it takes a little bit of gusto to do that sometimes because, when you pull an offer on an Ohio kid to get a Jersey kid, you got to be pretty sure that the Jersey kid is substantially better. And, I give Jim Knowles and the staff credit for cooling on a kid and going with a kid that was a better player. They got him in the fold, and now you just got to keep him in the fold. But yeah, I just the camps today were good. I got a good download from Bill Green. I called him for a little bit. Carter Lowe was there. He looked good, a little heavy. Guy that needs some work to get to where he needs to go. But he's a 6'6" kid. The 6'6" kids don't grow on trees. He's a true tackle. He's a guy that obviously will want. He'll go camp at Georgia and Bama this week. He'll get offered by both of them for sure. Bama with Eric Wolford, who's a former Ohio guy. Being their line coach, he's absolutely going to offer him when he gets down there and sees his size and see how good he looks. But he's a kid that can lose 15 pounds and be much better, and he's pretty raw technically. It was kind of up and down today, but he's got the tools to be great. And then we had the superstar running back out of Matter Day. He was in town today, worked out for 3 days. He was with Tony Alford, so that's a guy worth paying attention to. And then that was kind of it. There was a good linebacker, but it was little thin today at camp, and those camps have always been really good, but you're only as fruitful as the kids that you get to show up at camp. And there were about 4 guys there today, so it wasn't as one of the deeper camps, but it was still a good camp for those guys to attend and pay attention to. And we also have interviews popping up on our website on buckeyescoop.com, on our YouTube channel, so make sure you tune into those. Like I said, we had our guys on the ground interviewing Carter Lowe and interviewing Jordan Davison and some of these kids that are everyone's really interested in, because frankly, those are guys that I would project to both end up being Ohio State guys, and it's going to be really good to see how these guys turn out. Nevada, as these camps wind down, there's about 3 left. There's a 7-on-7 tournament What do you want these guys to get out of the camps from a coaching staff perspective, from a player perspective? Again, it's tougher and tougher to get these kids to camps because these camps are short now. They're about 2 hours long. They used to be about 6 hours long. They used to be a 3 hour morning, 3 hour afternoon. They're really getting kind of fizzled down. But what do you want the coaches to get out of these camps, these last few eval camps?
Well, I think, look, from a fan perspective, the most important thing for the fans, we're always trying to educate you guys and try to make you guys better, smarter fans. Don't overreact to stuff that you see on the camp stuff. Don't, if you see video of these one-on-ones, don't try to draw any conclusions, one way or the other. Like, this guy's the greatest one-on-one guy, this guy's the worst one-on-one. Fun fact, the greatest one-on-one defensive end in the history of Ohio State camps was none other than Burt Carton. Burt Carton never lost a rep as a defensive end. Defensive end, mind you, at these Ohio State camps, because he knew the drills, he knew how to get the guys, he knew how to beat these offensive linemen. That's how he got on the radar, as a defensive end. So Burt Carton, the All-American tree in the grove, could have been TJ Watt, could have been JJ Watt, could have been Dean Lowry. But instead, he's our beloved offensive tackle. So, like I said, just don't read too much into these things, because some of these drills are so heavily weighted towards the defensive linemen, and I think they're generally designed to make offensive linemen look bad. So if you see an offensive lineman and he doesn't look quite as great, flip on his game tape and then try to draw some different conclusions, because I think you can easily get led to the wrong conclusion by just paying attention to the camp stuff.
Well, and again, I think one-on-one pass rush is so slanted towards the defensive lineman. It's almost silly, because you don't get many situations where you get a one-on-one rush, no slide protection, no running back coming your way, no tight end on the line, no threat of a run at all. So if it's like 3rd and 20 and they're an empty, I guess maybe. It's kind of like if you do the one-on-ones between the receivers and the DBs, like the wide receivers have a huge advantage because they can run across the middle of the field. There's no linebackers, there's no safeties, there's no traffic, there's no guys running routes that you're in combination with that get in your way or whatever. So, if you say, okay, here's Carnell Tate, I watched this one year, and he has the entire width of the field and the entire length of the field to get open, and all the time in the world, because there's no pass rush, there's no, quarterback has to step up in the pocket or break the pocket or scramble out. Like, no, he's just sitting there like chill mode, easiest can be to make the perfect throw. That's really hard on a DB, really hard. Because in a real game, you've got a pass rush, you've got traffic in the middle, you've got help over the top. If you're a corner, I mean, unless it's all out cover 0 or cover 1, you usually have a guy behind you that if you get scorched deep, you've got some help. So it's kind of all over the board. And for me, I just, I don't know, man. It's just tough for me to get real down on an offensive lineman who doesn't look great on one-on-ones. Like when I was there and I watched Josh Padilla versus Hero Kanu beat Josh like every single rep. Now, in modern football, if we go watch, the third team O-line versus the third team D-line, we see Hero Kanu versus Josh Padilla. Josh probably isn't going to get whipped every single rep. And if he does, then he's not going to be at Ohio State very long. But, in that drill, it didn't look great. And I watched that, I was like, Josh has never played center in his entire life. He's a tackle, and he's at center. He's playing center for the first time ever at a camp. Hero's a really good defensive tackle. So, you got to give Hero a little bit of credit, but the drill is really slanted towards Hero. So it went about how I expected. And, if, like I said, if you go out and watch practice there, if you go watch the spring game and watch Josh Padilla, he doesn't get walked like that in a regular game. I played with a guy in the NFL, played 11 years, starting center, really good player, and I never saw him win a single rep of one-on-one pass rush, ever. And when he got in the games, he didn't give up many sacks. He might get 1 or 2 a year. I mean, he was a really good center, made a lot of money in the league, but in one-on-one pass rush, he just terrible at it. So again, you got to kind of be intelligent about these things sometimes, because people will say, oh, this guy is great or this guy stinks. And when they're playing football with no pads and just a helmet, and it's just a random given day where some kid might have the best day of his life, another kid might not be having a great day, maybe didn't get a good night's sleep, whatever it is, not making excuses. You just got to throw that in as part of the grading metric. It's not the be all end all if a kid, has a rotten camp or doesn't have a great camp, because, at the end of the day, the most important part about camp is getting eyeballs on the kid, talking to the kid, coaching the kid, and just seeing where he's at. And that's why Carter Lowe's stock is still really high, because Justin Fry was working with him and he liked him, and Justin Fry, liked Carter, and and the kid's 6'6". I mean, you could go win every rep at Ohio State's camp. If you're 6'1", it doesn't matter. They're not going to offer you. They don't really care about you. They're glad to get your $50 for the day. But if you're 6'6", then they're like, okay, let's talk business. Let's see how we need to progress the relationship, because it is what it is. So does any of that surprise you, Nevada, as I got the little truth serum out going for today?
No. Again, I think that look, I think that too many people get hung up on that stuff, and I love hearing the inside stuff on this. I love hearing about not only how stuff works, and how it's important or how it's not important, but why it's important or why it's not important. And I think it's really important perspective for people to have. And I think for Ohio State right now, Ohio State's done such a great job of building this national brand for Ohio State, because you think about the national brands in college football, and a lot of the national brands have been down. I'm talking about the truly national brands, because I don't consider Georgia to be like a national brand. I mean, Georgia, to me, they're the back-to-back national champions, and still, they're not the blue bloods. They're not the the Oklahomas or the Texases or the USCs or the Ohio States. They're not in that different echelon of schools right there. And Ohio State's really pushing that national brand, that huge NFL draft success that they've got right now. They're combining it with an NIL program that's competitive, but not over the top, not Texas A&M or Miami crazy. And like I said, mixing in a good mixture of focus on some Ohio kids, focus on some camp offers and some camp kids, while still casting that wide net to the national kids, and it's all coming together. And for Ohio State fans, it's a time to be really excited, because you're starting to see the fruits of that, because the commits are starting to roll in.
Yeah, I totally agree. Got a super chat here from our guy D Sunny. This is an interesting one, so I'm gonna let Nevada take this one first. Talking about coaches, what role does Brian Voltolini play? Question mark. I would always see him close to him, but never heard of him. Nevada, do you want to take this, or want me to take a crack at it?
Yeah. I'm gonna let you take a crack at this one, because I think that you're certainly you're better versed to articulate exactly what Volt does, other than hold the headset and the breath mints for Urban Meyer. So I'll let you do that one.
So Volt is the director of operations for Ohio State. So he's the guy that, when we're getting ready to play a new away team, he goes out and checks out the hotel we're going to stay in, checks out the meals we're going to be eating, checks out the charter jets, make sure that all that's lined up, make sure that the pizzas are ordered on time, make sure that the meals are ordered properly. Like, I mean, with Urban, he had every responsibility in the world, including, when things went bad that weren't really in his control, he was the guy that got whipped. We were playing Michigan State 2012, and the flight was late taking off to get to East Lansing. And I was sitting by Volt. I was sitting like in the same row as Volt, not directly next to him, but I was sitting in the same row as him. And Urban was just absolutely blistering him about the flight being, an hour late. Or we were like stuck at Rickenbacker Airport. And man, was it, of all the jobs in the universe I don't want, it was that job working for Urban. Now, working for Ryan, who's obviously much softer with his coaches, a lot easier on his coaches than Urban was, it's probably a lot better job. But Urban, who is really known for pushing his coaches and making them work really hard, it was a really tough job to be the operations guy, because any little thing that could go wrong or wasn't up to Urban standard, whether the sub sandwiches didn't have enough lunch meat in them, or the buses that we'd taken forever under Jim Tressel, the little cabs buses, weren't luxurious enough, and you got to cancel those and get high-end charter buses to drive us to the golf course for a 5-minute ride. Like, it was always Volt's fault, and with Urban, man, it was like, but again, Volt followed him. I mean, Volt came from Idaho or wherever he came to. He met Urban at either Utah or Florida. Then he came to Ohio State from Florida, got a nice hefty raise and got a big title and all that. But man, he used to have to work really hard to please Urban. And it was amazing, because, I never feel bad for guys that are, getting paid the way Volt did, for a job that's kind of, it's okay, but it's not really that hard to do. But, when anything would go wrong, it was like whipping boy season. And I used to die laughing when Urban would just whip the crap out of Volt because a lot of it, there's nothing that Volt could have done or there's nothing any human could have done, but that was just part of the gig when you worked for Urban Meyer. So, and then on game days, obviously he was the headset guy, the get back coach, the guy that, when Urban would launch the headset against the ground, he'd have to go get him a new headset, and he would have to keep Urban off the field. He'd be the guy that always be walking right behind Urban. So when Urban would go after an official or whatever, like Volt would be the guy that would have to hold him back to keep him from, getting ejected or whatever. So it's always entertaining watching Volt on game days. Ryan's a lot more subdued. He's a lot more easygoing. He's a lot easier, a lot softer to work with than Urban is. But yeah, Volt working for Urban was something else. You have anything to add on that, Nevada?
Well, the other thing I want to add, I want to use just a little example for fans. If you want to know what it was like working under Urban Meyer, if you've ever seen the movie Casino, where they've got Lefty Rosenthal and he goes into the kitchen because the blueberry muffins don't have the equal number of blueberries in each one of the muffins. That's what it's like working for Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer is just he's just relentless, and that's why he wins. And that's why, the greatest thing I've ever heard is, Urban Meyer wanted people to be uncomfortable, and Ryan Day wants people to be comfortable. And it's so true that if you want to understand the difference between Meyer and Day, that's what it is. And I'm not telling you that you coached under him, so you know what it was like. So you survived the madness.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't mind it. Like I don't mind. If it's going to be Full Metal Jacket every day, I don't mind it as long as we're winning every game and we're progressing and we're getting better and the O-line's playing better. And like, I don't mind any of that. Like I'm not opposed to absolute insane maniacal work. Like for me, it's just like, I loved it. Like I actually kind of craved it because like with Urban, every day was fourth and an inch. Every day was Full Metal Jacket every day. And like I said, there were a lot of guys, a lot of coaches that were scared to death of him. And I was never scared of Urban. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm good. My life is good. So, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do a great job, but I'm not going to be scared of you ever. And there were some coaches that they'd walk in that door, man, and they had that cold sweat running down their back. And they would get so nervous. And Urban, I always said Urban was like, if there's like, some Stephen King horror movie where like there's some animal or beast that can like sense your fear, and then as soon as it smelled you were scared, it would come kill you and eat you. That's what Urban was. Like if he could smell that you were scared of him, it was like, I mean, he was Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger or the clown or whatever. I mean, whatever is like your darkest nightmare, that's what Urban would turn to. And so I just figured out like, I'm never gonna be scared of him. I don't care. I'm a GA. I can make more working at McDonald's, for 10 hours a week than I do what you guys pay me. So I don't care. I'm going to work hard and get my MBA done, and I'm going to make this O-line really good, make the O-line really, really, really strong. And it was in 2012. All those kids went on to get drafted, so I did my job. But man, there were some guys and Urban, man, when he smelled that fear, man, he would just whip these guys. And I loved it. I thought it was hilarious because I was like, how can you guys be so stupid to be scared of that guy? Because he's a great coach. And again, there's a reason why the guys like him and Saban and the really great ones, the Kirby Smart, the really great ones, like they're great because they just outwork everybody. That's something that, that was kind of like his trademark. So anything to add to that, Nevada?
Well, yeah, I know there had been a report from another Buckeye website a long time ago about how one coach picked up and chokeslammed Meyer through a drawer or something like that. Just wondering, because you weren't afraid of him, were you that guy? No, that was Vrabel. Vrabel was the one who supposedly picked up Meyer and chokeslammed him. Do you believe that story was made up by that other fan website, or do you think that was true?
I mean, I had a text from I had stuff from inside Ohio State's facility that couldn't believe that they went with that and how it wasn't true. And so I'm sure that, with Vrabes, there was probably some sort of an altercation. I don't know if he jackknife powerbombed him through the table like was reported. But like Vrabes is a guy, Vrabes had, 30 million in the bank and he didn't need the job and he was getting ready to go to the league anyways. So he probably knew he's about to be leaving for the NFL the day after the Orange Bowl. So his given F meter was probably about exhausted. Probably had nothing left in it. So, when if Urban is giving it to Luke Fickell because we gave up 870 yards to Sammy Watkins and Clemson, it wouldn't surprise me if Raves came and defended him because, Luke needed the job. Luke needed to be the DC. He wanted to be a head coach. He was kind of on that coaching track. Vraves was ready to go with Bill O'Brien to go to Houston. So I don't think he cared. I really don't. And I love Mike Vrabel and I love Luke Fickell, but one was not like the other. Vraves had that long NFL career, a lot of money in the bank, fantastic run, and really didn't need to get into coaching. He could be laying on the beach in Panama City for the rest of his life. But obviously he's a fantastic coach. Was coach of the year in the NFL for the Titans, but he was out the door when that Orange Bowl kicked off. So if it got a little loose in that locker room, like it would have been Fickell doing it because Fickell wants to keep his job and he's got 12 kids he's got to take care of with his wife Amy, and so it's he can't go and get loose on Urban the way Vrabes could. But it wasn't me. I was gone by then.
Now, question for you: in 2023, now Vrabel had there was an incident where he took some beer from a mini mart at a casino or something. Remember that whole thing?
That's the greatest thing ever.
Does that disqualify him from working at Ohio State? Do you think he gets the job at Ohio State if that happens in today's time?
I mean, as long as he's got 17 COVID vaccinations, he's probably good. But otherwise, no. And he wears a mask. But no, but that was when people are just dumb. Like Mike Vrabel, I think he left money at the casino that was empty and he'd been gambling. It was at Belterra in Indiana. I've never been there, but I have family members who used to go there all the time. And it was bars closed, cocktail waitresses on a smoke break or whatever. So, he's been gambling probably, $10,000-$15,000 at the tables. And he walks over and grabs a Bud Light. And they call the cops over a $3 beer when they probably fed him 20 beers while he's sitting at the table. So again, there's varying levels of crime. And I mean, that's about as low as it gets. And honestly, it's incredibly stupid that a casino, and I hope that whoever did that got fired at the casino. Cause Raves isn't going to steal a beer. He's a millionaire and he's probably tipped that girl more money than 100 cases of beer would cost. So I don't know. Was I on staff with Ed Warner? Yes, I was. 2012, me and Ed worked together for a year. It was good. We got that line cranked up after a bad year in 2011, turned it into a really good year in 2012. And we took the O-line from being probably the weakness of the team to the strength of the team. So it was a lot of work, a lot of hours, but it's rewarding when you go undefeated and you have a really good line and you see guys like Andrew Norwell become the highest paid guard in NFL history. You see Corey Linsley be the highest paid center in NFL history. Jackie Muhort goes second round. Actually got drafted before either of those two. Had knee injuries, which ended his career prematurely. Marcus Hall is doing great. Marcus weighs about 210 pounds now. He's a big avid cyclist. He's real skinny now, which is hilarious. And we had Reed Fragel, who's he's working in the industry down here in Columbus, and he's doing great too. And he lasted a couple years in the league, bounced around some practice squads. So it was rewarding to see those guys really do well and kind of reach their dreams of being NFL football players. So, what's up, Paul? Would I ever consider coaching an offensive line different? No. I enjoyed coaching for the 3 years I did it. I got my MBA, but I really value my time. And when you're a line coach or a coach in general at the college level, even with with recruiting, NIL, summer visits, you have no life. It's impossible. You have no free time. Your family is completely neglected. Usually the families hate their husbands when they're in coaching because, they know they're never going to come first and you're going to miss all the family events that are important. And, there's a lot of ways where you can live your life, but I enjoy my time and my flexibility to be able to do what I want to do. And I enjoy watching my kid practice, sports and hanging out with them and being able to have that flexibility to take them to tournaments and all that stuff. And, when you're a coach, you don't get to do any of that because you're at an official visit with some kid that is probably going to go to Michigan or USC or Alabama on Saturday, and you have to miss everything. So I don't miss that lifestyle. I think it's it's a fantastic thing to watch, but when I can turn my TV off and I'm done with Ohio State football for the day, I'm just as happy as can be. So there is my answer for that one. You surprised by that, Nevada?
No, look, I've learned a long time ago, and like I said, guys, people that are listening, if there's any to the younger people, any advice I can give you is man, invest the time in your family and your kids and stuff like that, because none of the other stuff matters when you get to the end of the road. So having flexibility and having the ability to watch your kids, like you said, practice, play, spend time with them is that's the greatest success of all. So yeah, I tip my hat to you, Kirk. I think you got it figured out.
Well, yeah, and honestly, like there was a point where I wanted to be like line coach, and I wanted to be Heartline. So I knew I could recruit really well. The kids I talked to loved me. I knew I could recruit because again, most of the O-line guys are the biggest dorks in the world. They're the dorkiest guys in high school, the fat guys in high school. They're not, and like I, was able to really relate to kids. The kids are like Jamarco Jones and Ethan Posick and some of these kids I still talk to that they didn't all come to Ohio State and they're all pretty heralded kids. Like, so I knew like if you get the recruiting part down, that's like 90% of the game. Because if you get 5 secretariats to play for you, then you're probably going to win all the races. But again, it's just that time thing is just it's hard. And honestly, I was in the room when Jim Tressel got fired, and I saw how he was treated by our administration, and it really soured coaching for me because I was like, this guy's done everything for this university and for fundraising for the Heart Hospital and for the Wexner Medical Center and the band and everything else in the world. And they just threw him out like just an old sack of garbage, which was stunning to me because, what he did was obviously nothing compared. You look at what's going on now with the NIL stuff. I mean, and they threw him out like he shot up an orphanage. And I was like, yeah, I'm good on that. Again, it's a nice thought. It's a novel thought, but the problem is a lot of these universities are ran by absolute scumbags, and I don't want to be around that. Like, I don't want those guys to be able to dictate my life. We got another super chat. So we got Decent. You mentioned national brands. Says Ohio State been lucky with recruiting hires, or the powers behind the scenes to make sure we are always good? Are there powers behind the scenes to make sure? Nevada, do you want to take that one?
Well, read me the question because my eyes are bad there, Mr. Barton.
You mentioned national brands. This is from D. Sonny, our boy, again. Has Ohio State just been lucky with coaching hires, or are the powers behind the scenes, are there powers behind the scenes to make sure we are always good?
Yes, there are powers behind the scenes to make sure we're always good. Yeah, and it's something that doesn't get enough attention. There's it's kind of like we talked about the story of the whole Jim Tressel thing. You kind of talk about that move from Jim Tressel to Urban Meyer with the interim stop there to Luke Fickell. They don't make the move on Tressel without having Meyer in their pocket. They knew Meyer was coming, and that was the powers that be. That was the guys, even beyond the board of trustees that are working and pulling the strings for Ohio State football. And I give them credit. That's how things have moved, because it moves way beyond the pay grade of the athletic director, way beyond the pay grade of the president of the university. And these guys are the real power brokers for Ohio State football. It's the big donors. It's some names that you're familiar with. It's some names that you're less familiar with. But yeah, that's, the string of successful coaches is certainly not an accident. The string of big name coaches is certainly not an accident. And, we've been so fortunate to move from Tressel, to Meyer today, with pretty much without a hitch. And, I think we've had, a little bit of a blip here with the last couple of years losing to Michigan. But other than that, the program's in great shape. And, frankly, I hate to say this, but I think it's about to get better, because I think the expanded playoff, the move away from divisions in the Big Ten, is basically just clearing a path for Ohio State to go to the playoff every single year. And with our talent, we're going to be, we're going to have more than a chip on a chair and a chance to win the national championship every single year, almost without fail. And so, buckle up. Golden year of Ohio State football with the expanded playoff and an easy Big Ten is about to get pretty exciting.
I agree. I mean, we're going to make the playoffs every year now, so we're always going to be in the hunt. Like, if you think about these teams in the past that had the slip up versus Iowa, slip up versus Purdue, in the Meyer era, those teams have both been in the playoffs. And again, by the end of the year, both those teams were playing as good as anybody. I mean, that 17 team beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. They had Matt Barkley, who was the best quarterback in the country. And obviously, the scariest team would have been that 15 team that lost to Michigan State at home, because nobody wanted to see those guys. That team whipped Notre Dame in that bowl game. They whipped Michigan 50-14 in Ann Arbor, back when we used to beat Michigan in the olden days. And I'm telling you, man, like, you got to get that attitude back. Cause I mean, that team went up there coming off a bad loss at home, senior day, embarrassment. And Urban rallied the troops and got those guys gassed up, ready to go. He put Ed Warner up in the box where he should have been all year long. And it was like Ezekiel Elliott's, Swans like just absolutely murdered Michigan that day in the big house, And again, that was a team that, should have won the national championship. That was a better team than the 14 team. That's the team that I think that a lot of those kids that won that title in 14, you ask them about that and they're just like, man, we should have been back to back. We should have been, because they had 18, 19 guys back, including both quarterbacks and Zeke and Bosa. And, that team now gets into the playoffs. So a lot of these teams that stub their toe and, it's the Final Four. And, how many times has Ohio State had one loss and been left out at 5 or 6 or whatever because they lost too late in the season, or they had an ugly loss to a bad Purdue team or a bad Iowa team? Now those teams get real second life and they get to get into the dance and go whoop on some guys. And, we've been really good at peaking. Like, I think that, even after that Michigan loss at home where we got trounced, we go play Georgia, man. And like CJ Stroud played the game of his life. Our team showed up ready to go. They were tuned up, ready to rock. And they had everything against them. They're playing Georgia in the, the Mercedes-Benz Dome down there. And they left it all on the field. And they're 10 yards away. If we can get 10 yards on 3 plays with 2 timeouts at 29 seconds to go or whatever, and kick a shorter field goal and Noah cranks it through, we probably won the national championship. So, those teams are going to have a lot more opportunity to win the Natty now going forward. That was a great question. Appreciate that. So, God, man, time flies. Well, Nevada, we're going to wrap this thing. Do you got any other gleanings as we go off into the night on BuckeyesScoop.com? We got the NBA playoff game ready to tip off, so we'll start that off.
No, just again, mention again, huge 5-star call, Bill the Bank Green. Check it out on BuckeyesScoop.com. Probably a name that you're not expecting. Kind of took me a little bit off guard when I saw it, but it was definitely not a lot of 5-star kids. Not a lot of 5-star kids that are flying under the radar at Ohio State. This one may surprise you, so check it out.
Yeah, I was shocked and very excited. So again, as always, on Scoop, we're bringing it. Again, Bank was on ground at camp all day with Joe Dram, getting a lot of great video, a lot of good photos. Check our site, check our YouTube. If you haven't followed our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, search Buckeye Scoop, The Morning Scoop, SWO. We load them all up every day. So if you want to give those a follow, that'd be huge for us for our audio podcasts. A lot of you guys like to drive to work in the morning, listen to a good podcast so you can listen to the audio version of the show. We'd love to have you on. So again, if you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and click that little alert bell if you like our live shows. We appreciate all of the great super chats. Appreciate you, Paul. Appreciate all you guys on here, all the regulars. Love seeing you guys. D Sunny is always the king of the super chat. The super chats always get answered. So if you guys have a real question, you really want it answered, send us a super chat. We appreciate you guys that stand out in our chats. So those are fantastic. But again, thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this content, BuckeyesScoop.com needs to be your new home. I mean, the recruiting momentum is crazy. Team is working hard in the summer, getting great updates from a lot of players, a lot of coaches, a lot of guys that are right in the weeds on the ground. So it is all cranked up. But as always, appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.